In October of 2021, I moved into an old apartment in Providence, Rhode Island. It was one of those pre-war buildings with brick walls, creaky pipes, and a strange charm that made you think it had a memory of its own. The rent was cheap, and the previous tenant had left behind some furniture, including a large, antique mirror mounted above the dresser in the bedroom. The mirror was tall, arched at the top with a cracked wooden frame that looked hand-carved. There was something unsettling about it, like it was always just slightly darker than the rest of the room, even when the lights were on. But I told myself it was just age and shadows. The first week was uneventful, though I noticed I started waking up around 3:17 a.m. every night. No sound, no nightmares. I'd just open my eyes and feel the urge to look at the mirror. And each time I'd see nothing unusual, just my reflection. Still, it started to bother me. I even covered the mirror with a bedsheet, hoping it would help me sleep through the night. But the strange wake-ups continued. The only difference was that now I'd find the sheet on the floor in the morning, neatly folded. I knew I hadn't done that. One night, after a particularly exhausting day at work, I fell asleep without remembering to cover the mirror. As usual, I woke up in the early hours, 3:17, but this time something was different. I wasn't facing the mirror, but I could feel it, like heat or pressure coming from it. When I rolled over to look, my reflection didn't move. It stood there, staring directly at me. Same clothes, same posture, but it didn't turn when I did. I froze, barely breathing. After what felt like minutes, it slowly smiled. Not a big, obvious grin, just the faintest twitch of the corners of its mouth, like it knew I was watching. Then it blinked, and in real time I did not. I turned on the lamp instantly. My reflection snapped back to normal, perfectly in sync, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd caught something pretending to be me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I went online and tried to find the history of the mirror. It wasn't a brand name, no markings on the back, no serial number, just an old, unnamed object that seemed to have no traceable origin. I decided to get rid of it. I listed it for free on a local classifieds site and left it by the curb. Within a few hours it was gone. I felt instant relief, like a weight had lifted. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept straight through. But the next morning, the mirror was back, sitting in the hallway outside my apartment door, propped up perfectly against the wall. I stared at it for a long time, unsure if someone had returned it by mistake or if I was losing my grip. I asked my neighbours, but no one admitted to seeing who left it. I brought it back inside, not knowing what else to do, and leaned it face first against the bedroom wall. That night the knocking started. Not at the door, not at the window, from inside the mirror. It was faint, muffled, but undeniably there. I turned on every light in the apartment and just stared at the back of the mirror, not daring to flip it over. The sound would come in slow intervals, 3 knocks, silence, then again. Around sunrise it stopped. I decided I needed to destroy it. I dragged it down to the parking lot, grabbed a hammer from my trunk, and swung at it with everything I had. The glass cracked, spider-webbed, but wouldn't shatter. I kept hitting it until finally the frame splintered and the mirror collapsed into shards. I left the pieces in a dumpster 3 blocks away and came home shaking. That night, I slept peacefully until 3:17 a.m. I opened my eyes to find my bedroom window completely fogged from the inside, and on the glass, drawn in with a fingertip, were 3 words. "You broke me." I scrambled out of bed, turned on the lights, and backed away. The message was still there. I didn't know what to do. I stayed at a friend's place for the next 2 nights. On the 3rd night, I came home to grab a few things. The mirror had returned. At this time, it wasn't the same. The frame was cracked, the glass fractured, but it stood upright in the corner of my bedroom, reflecting nothing. Literally nothing. When I looked into it, there was no reflection. No wall behind me, no me, just darkness, infinite and still. Then faintly I saw movement within it. Not a reflection, something deeper, farther back. I watched frozen as a figure began to walk forward, slow, deliberate, closer and closer, until I could make out its face, mine, but twisted, eyes darker, skin grey and strained like it had been screaming for years. It raised a hand and pressed it to the inside of the glass. A crack spread from that point, spidering across the mirror in a perfect circle. I turned and ran. I never went back. The building was sold 6 months later and converted into luxury condos. I heard they renovated all the units, gutted everything. But sometimes I checked the listings out of curiosity. And in a few of the newer photos, staged and clean, I keep noticing something strange. A mirror, same arch, same frame, always in the background, and in every one, my face, slightly turned, looking out. In June of 2022, I stayed at my cousin's house in rural Pennsylvania for a week while waiting for my new apartment lease to start. She lived in a restored farmhouse built sometime in the 1800s, tucked deep into wooded land with spotty cell service and long gravel driveways. Her place was beautiful, creaky floors, exposed beams, and a strange quiet that you either got used to or didn't. She and her husband were kind enough to give me the upstairs guest room, the one at the end of the hall that overlooked the woods. It was cozy, with antique furniture, an old rocking chair, and a massive full-length mirror mounted on the inside of the closet door. The mirror caught my attention immediately. It looked hand-blown, slightly distorted at the edges, and the glass wasn't entirely clear. It had a smoky tint, like something stained from the inside. I remember thinking it gave the room character, but after the first night I stopped looking at it altogether. The first 2 nights were uneventful, other than some trouble sleeping, the kind where your brain feels foggy the next day, even if you're technically well rested. The third night I woke up to the sound of the rocking chair moving just gently back and forth. I sat up, heart thudding, and tried to convince myself it was the house settling or some breeze I hadn't felt. But the window was closed, the fan wasn't on, the chair was swaying so slowly, so steadily, like someone had only just left it. I turned on the bedside lamp and the motion stopped instantly. I stared at the mirror across the room, catching my own reflection in the dim light, but something felt wrong. It took me a second to realize what it was. In the mirror, the rocking chair was still moving. I blinked, looked at the real chair. Still, in the mirror, it rocked, just once more, then stopped. I turned on every light in the room and didn't sleep again until morning. I didn't say anything to my cousin. I didn't want to sound dramatic, and maybe it was just a trick of the light or my sleep-deprived brain. But from that moment, I kept the closet door shut. Every night, latched. The next night, I dreamed of the mirror. I was standing in front of it, but the reflection wasn't me. It was my back, as if the mirror showed what was behind me instead of what was in front. In the reflection, the closet door opened slowly, and something stepped out, tall, thin, with limbs too long and a face that didn't quite hold still. Like static made human, I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The room was dark, still. The closet door was shut, but my reflection in the window pane across from the bed was standing. I hadn't moved. I lay there frozen, watching it for a full minute until it slowly turned its head, something I hadn't done. And then everything went black as the power flickered out for a few seconds. When the lights came back on, I was still in bed, alone. But the reflection was gone. Just the empty glass of the window showing the tree line. That morning I asked my cousin if she knew anything about the mirror. She seemed surprised. Said it had come with the house. No one had ever thought to move it. I asked if anything strange had ever happened in the room. Her expression changed slightly. She said an old tenant, before they bought the place, used to sleep there, and he once told the previous owner he'd seen people in the mirror at night. She laughed it off like she didn't believe it, but I could tell she didn't like the question. That night I latched the closet door tight, taped it shut just to be sure, and tried to get some rest. Around 2 a.m. I woke to a sound I can only describe as a low creaking, not the chair this time. The closet. I bolted upright and saw the tape hanging loose from the door frame. The latch had popped open, slowly, without a sound. The door eased open an inch. I reached for the lamp. It didn't work. The room was completely dark except for the faint silver reflection from the mirror. I didn't want to look, but my eyes were drawn to it. There was someone standing in the room behind me. closer than the bed, between me and the wall. Not moving, just standing there, slightly hunched, head tilted too far to the left, like it didn't know how to hold it right. I turned quickly, but no one was there. I looked back at the mirror. The figure had taken a step forward. This time its hands pressed against the inside of the glass, not like it was trying to get out, like it had already gotten in. I don't remember falling asleep. I must have passed out from panic. In the morning the closet was closed again, mirror normal, nothing out of place, but when I checked my phone I found a photo in my camera roll I didn't take. It was of the guest room, from the foot of the bed, taken at 2:02 a.m, and in the picture I was sleeping, but my reflection in the mirror was awake, eyes wide open, looking straight at the camera. In December of 2022, I moved into a small third-floor apartment in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, after finally being able to afford my own place. It was in a quiet building, 6 units total, and though it was old, it had this quirky charm. The landlord, an older guy named Vic, was straightforward but friendly. He told me someone had just vacated Unit 3B, the one at the end of the hall, and if I didn't mind old plumbing and creaky floors, I could move in immediately. I took it. The apartment came mostly unfurnished, except for a few leftover pieces the last tenant didn't bother taking. One of those was a mirror. It was mounted to the wall in the hallway between the bedroom and bathroom. Tall, narrow, framed in metal that had tarnished to a dull bronze. It didn't look like much, but it had clearly been there a while. There were small scratch marks around the frame, like someone had tried to pry it off once but gave up. I didn't think much of it at first. It was just a mirror. But the more time I spent there, the more I noticed how out of place it felt. Reflections in it were just slightly off, not distorted, but delayed. I'd turn my head quickly and catch the faintest hesitation in my reflection catching up. I wrote it off as poor lighting, or maybe some imperfection in the old glass. But one night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My reflection blinked when I didn't. It was subtle, a single blink. But I'd been staring right at myself, and I know I hadn't done it. I stood still, waiting, watching. Nothing, just my own face. I laughed nervously, dried my hands, and turned off the light. But as I walked down the hallway, I glanced at the mirror again. And my reflection didn't follow. It stood there just outside the edge of the glass, as if watching me walk away. Frozen, still, almost like it was thinking. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I covered the mirror with an old sheet and taped it down along the edges. It stayed that way for a few days and everything felt normal, but late one evening I came home from work and the sheet was on the floor perfectly folded, as if someone had carefully removed it. I froze in the doorway, keys still in hand, staring at the bare mirror. The hallway was empty, but my reflection was smiling. I wasn't. I locked myself in the bedroom and stayed up until sunrise. That morning, I called the landlord and asked if anyone else who'd lived in 3B had ever complained about strange things. He hesitated before answering, then said that people didn't usually stay long in that unit. Some said they felt uncomfortable. A couple had nightmares. One tenant left in the middle of the night, left all their stuff behind. He didn't believe in any of that crap, he said, but admitted the mirror had always been there. Even before he bought the building, it was built into the wall. No one could remember a time without it. That night I dreamed of the mirror. But in the dream it was like a doorway, an opening to something else. Something that mimicked this world but was wrong, off. I stood on one side, and on the other a version of me stared back, silent, expressionless. It raised its hand and pointed. Behind me in the dream I could feel something breathing, but I couldn't turn around. I woke up drenched in sweat. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in the hallway, directly in front of the mirror. I didn't remember getting up. I didn't remember walking, but I had scratches on my arms and neck, like I'd been climbing through something tight and narrow, the kind of scratches you get from crawling through broken glass or tree branches. I checked the bathroom, the bedroom, the front door, all locked, nothing broken. The mirror looked normal. just my reflection. Later that week, I set up a camera across from it. I left it running overnight, facing the mirror, hoping to catch something. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, the first few hours were uneventful. But around 3:14 a.m., the reflection in the mirror began to shift. My reflection got up. I didn't. On camera, I was asleep in bed, but in the mirror, I stood up, walked toward the camera, and leaned in close. The face twisted, not angry or grotesque, just wrong, like it was trying to figure out how the camera worked. Then it smiled again. Not at the lens, at me, through it. Then the video cut to static. I deleted the file, unplugged the camera. I decided to move. Told the landlord I was breaking the lease. He didn't argue, just said 3B gets under people's skin. As I was packing, I noticed something that I can't explain. The mirror. It's not just mounted to the wall. There's no wall behind it. The back is open, hollow, a space. I never looked inside. I left the apartment that night with half my stuff still in boxes. I didn't care. But a week later, I got a small package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo, a picture of me, standing in that hallway in front of the mirror with my back to the camera, and in the mirror behind me, someone else, not me, waving. Some mirrors don't just reflect your image, they remember you, follow you, and sometimes they want to switch places. If these true mirror horror stories unsettled you, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because the next time you catch your reflection moving wrong, it might already be too late.